Parliament on Tuesday resumed sitting to consider a number of critical bills. The minority is, however, alleging breach of parliamentary procedure in processes leading to the resumption of sitting. The minority MPs explained they were not giving the 14-day notice the standing orders of Parliament state must be given before the House resumes from break. Their other issue is what they describe as a tall list of items they need to look at before the end of this sitting. They say it will not enable them to thoroughly scrutinize the bills. But the majority leader disagrees. Joseph Opoku-Gakpo has more.
Today marked the very first sitting of the House after their 2-month break. Well, there's a number of activities that has been tabled for dealing with this coming week, including issues around the Special Prosecutors Bill, the bill on the various development authorities, and a number of other items. But one issue that came up earlier today had to do with the duration that was given in terms of the notice that was sent out to MPs even before the House resumed. I've been speaking to Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, who is a member of the minority, who is concerned that they weren't given the 14-day notice as is required by the standing orders of Parliament.
We in the minority are ever ready to support the government to ensure that government machinery runs and that the programs and projects of this country that will benefit our people, that require parliamentary approval, we are ever ready to support the executive to carry out our mandate so that our country functions and our country progresses. However, procedure is important. The standing orders are very clear that to recall Parliament, you need a 2 weeks notice, except if it is under circumstances of emergency. This does not qualify under that.
The majority leader, Osei Mensah-Bonsu, has been responding to the concerns because it was even raised earlier in the day by the minority leader, Haruna Idrisu himself. And well, for Mr. Osei Mensah-Bonsu, there was no breach in the procedures. They were given the adequate notice, and he even makes the argument that they should have resumed sitting earlier than they are now. And so he doesn't understand how come they are concerned that some of the MPs did not get adequate notice.
Based on the agreement that we had come to, has said to us that Parliament would in all likelihood be reconvening on the 3rd of October. So that is what I said. And the Speaker would usually say that I'm adjourning Sine Die. So I'm saying to us that technically we did not even adjourn Sine Die because the date was known to all of us before we adjourned. When we adjourned Sine Die without any known date, then at least 2 weeks at a time, you should inform Parliament or members of Parliament that the time is about due. We need to reconvene Parliament. So that exactly is what happened, right?
Did that communication get to them?
No, I'm saying that because we had already gotten to know the time. This time, the information was given not 2 weeks, but 2 months ahead. So who would say that they didn't know? Who would say that they didn't know? They knew 2 months ahead. In any event, members of Parliament are like soldiers. As I said, we are required to work in daylight, in sunshine, in nightfall, every time. Which is why our orders provide that in emergency situations, that 14-day clause should be waived. And the information will be given as and when required. Right? I told us that we are even required to come earlier when we had some discussions with the President. And I said to the President that, because we are coming on the 3rd, there's no point coming 1 week, paying the members their transportation, huge cost to the state, and then just one for them to do business for 1 day, go back, and then come on the 3rd of October. What the Energy Committee is doing now is what we're going to be summoned to do. And that is why we have even taken a suspension. Today, when they were told, they all agreed that, it's important.
The House is sitting very late into the evening today because they are considering an agreement which they need to ratify before close of day tomorrow, which would allow for Ghana to become a member of the International Solar Alliance. We are told that if this agreement is not ratified by tomorrow, the country will lose more than $100 million, which is money that will come in from our donor partners. And so they are sitting deep into the night to get this particular agreement ratified, so that then tomorrow they would get the president to assent to this, so Ghana becomes a member of that particular alliance. From Parliament House, my name is Joseph Opoku-Gakpo.
Well, that agreement that Joseph Opoku-Gakpo, our parliamentary correspondent, was talking about, he just tells us that Parliament has indeed approved that agreement. He joins us on the phone line. Hello, Joseph. So you're telling us that Parliament just adjourned, but that this agreement has been approved. Which agreement is this?
So it's called the International Solar Alliance Treaty, which various countries are expected to ratify. This is a process which is being led by the Indian government, and the understanding that we've gotten is supposed to help various countries transition from over-dependence on fossil fuel and hydroelectricity and get onto the use of solar energy when it comes to how they undertake their activities. From what we've gathered, this agreement has to be rushed through Parliament because the deadline by which Ghana should have ratified the agreement is tomorrow, and so Parliament has to give the approval for the President to assent by tomorrow, so that then we'll be able to benefit from this. In fact, from the document that got to the Mines and Energy Committee of Parliament, there is an amount of 10 billion which the Indian government and other investors are actually funding to support African countries transition onto the solar system in terms of how we use our energies and how we get our energy. And Ghana will be benefiting from that to the tune of more than 100 million. And so, for the agreement, the first 14 countries to ratify it locally would be the beneficiaries. And so Ghana had the deadline of tomorrow to ratify it, or we would not benefit from that 100 billion, which is how come the majority leader of Accra-Tema supposed to indicate that they had to rush their process through and get it approved today. The Energy Minister, Boakye Jako, has been addressing the media soon after that, and he's been indicating that a number of government agencies would, from now that the agreement has been approved, particularly next year going, be benefiting from the facility to transition from reliance on the electricity grid and get onto solar-powered energy, including the various ministries, departments, and agencies, and even the seat of government. And so Ghana will be benefiting from that after Parliament ratifies this particular agreement.
All right, thank you very much, Joseph Opoku-Gakpo. But Joseph, were there any other bills that were considered before the House adjourned?
So a number of them were actually laid with the expectation that the approval of it would continue from tomorrow going. Just to quote a few of those documents that came to Parliament earlier today, there is a tax waiver that is being sought, which is something having to do with the energy sector again, to the tune of $92 million, which was laid in Parliament earlier today by the Finance Minister. The company called Early Power Limited establishing a combined cycle gas turbine power plant in Tema. And as far as the processes to get that done are concerned, they've requested for tax of $92 million. And the Finance Minister actually laid that document today, and it's expected that the Finance Committee would report on that and give the necessary approval going forward. Again, the annual report of the National Road Safety Commission for 2015, that was also laid in Parliament today. And finally, there is a report of the Auditor General on the public accounts of Ghana, specifically for the fiscal year which ended December 2016. That report too was also brought and has since been referred to the Public Accounts Committee. But again, there was also a communication from the President to Parliament earlier today indicating that the President has decided to appoint the Member of Parliament for Akim Swedru Kennedy Osei Nyakon as the deputy, one of the 3 deputy ministers for agriculture, replacing William Kwetu, who resigned a few months ago. So it's also been referred to the appointment committee for the necessary vetting to kick in, and then it will be approved subsequently.
All right, thank you very much, Joseph Opoku Gakpo. We're taking a break here on JoyNews Prime, but still ahead in the bulletin, motorists once again highlight the deadly nature of the Accra-Tema motorway as a result of the numerous potholes that have littered one of Ghana's most important highways.
The potholes from Abattoir went to Trasako or Nogu. This don't serve. I went to the some car self for inside. It just hit the potholes, entire self-base.
And then television stations next to be taken down in ongoing exercise by the National Communications Authority to rid the airways of media houses operating without the necessary permits. Stay tuned, we'll be back in a bit. Now, motorists on the Accra-Tema motorway have once again highlighted the many potholes littering Ghana's most famous highway and the many lives that are being lost as a result of the authorities' failure to fix them. Accra's radio stations and social media are often inundated with advisories warning motorists about road crashes virtually every day on the motorway, quite a number of which result in fatalities. For many of the motorists who ply the road, a lot of these lives could be saved if drivers do not have to careen around the many potholes there, and so want government to take urgent action. JoyNews' Matilda Omega has more.
19-kilometer highway linking Accra to Ghana's main industrial hub and port, Tema, was built over 50 decades ago and has been a vital route used by many. Tens of thousands use the road each day, transporting both commuters and goods to and from Accra. The frequent accidents on the highway, however, make it one of the most dangerous. This driver explains how the poor state of the road is to blame for accidents.
The road is bad. Even when you're using outer lane, on the inner lane, the road is bad. Always potholes and things. So when you don't make careful, your friend will hit your back, then you have accidents on the road. Potholes, when it's from Abattoir or from the Accra-Tema bridge under to Abattoir, you see these potholes. And near Trasako, that place is potholes. The iron rod was promoting, so when you are going, you are not careful, you blast your tire.
Motorists who ply the route frequently say they have become aware of potholes and know how to avoid them. They, however, say that does not make them immune to the threats on the highway.
The potholes from Abattoir went to Trasako or Nogu. This don't serve. I went to the some car self for inside. It just hit the potholes, entire self-base. I pick it to this system, Achimota.
How bad is it, and how bad is it for you, the drivers?
It's too bad. More than manhole. More than manhole. At times, if you are private wing, in case you you can fall inside, or other you dodges, maybe the next car is your back, it can hit you.
For experience, all the time when I'm on the way going out, all the time I be cautious. Sometimes, because I've been using the road for a long time, so I know where there was a potholes, where I should overtake, where even if the trailer is my front, if I'm a speed at the limit at 30 or 40, I need to be in the back. When after where the pothole is before I can overtake. So always you need to be cautious.
Except for minor repairs on the road, it has not seen any major rehabilitation. The quick fixes have also largely not helped because of the material used to patch the potholes. Experts say, having been originally constructed with concrete, the introduction of any other material means the bond will only be superficial. In some portions of the road, the potholes are that deep, the iron rods woven into the base have been exposed. The absence of functioning street lights has made driving at night on the motorway even more dangerous.
On the night, the way potholes on there, especially we don't have any street light on the motorway. So when you are not careful and some can be spoiled on the motorway, you know, take time, you jam the car, then you cause accidents.
The mangled car barriers, the use of unauthorized stops by commercial vehicles and unauthorized pedestrian crossings are just some of the many issues making the motorway a highly unstructured route and have added to the dangers commuters and pedestrians are exposed to. Until some major interventions are made, the Accra-Tema motorway, which should ideally offer one of the safest routes to connect the two cities, will rather continue to pose a threat to commuters' lives. For JoyNews, Matilda Omega, Tema.
All right, so Joy FM, the Super Morning Show on Joy FM this morning started something with, as far as the roads or the motorway is concerned and the poor nature of it. They have this hashtag, Fix the Motorway. And this is one of the images that Joy FM, the Super Morning Show, posted earlier. And it's something that I shared on my Twitter handle. And I'm just going to be reading to you some of the comments that have come, but essentially this is one of the killer potholes on the Accra-Tema motorway. Now, if you're driving over it at 100 kilometers per hour, you're likely going to get a tire burst, and you may not live to tell the story, as one of the drivers we spoke to was saying. But in the replies, so in the comments that follow, people are talking about the fact that, so William talks about the fact that media houses have reported this time to that number, but the minister says until the expansion begins, nothing is going to be done. And Vale Cannon says there must be full accountability on roads funds collected today because we aren't ready to pour good wine in old sieves. And William Lamte says, just that, bruh, I don't know how we think and do our things as a nation. We ask our leaders to come and sit in the V8 and work not to. He doesn't end his comment there. And Neil Obli says, we dangerously have to drive on the motorway, dodging these manholes on a daily basis, but toll collections have never ceased. Now let's get a reaction from the Ministry of Roads, the Roads Ministry. They're disclosing that repair works on the Accra-Tema motorway should be done before the end, or should begin before the end of this month. Now, the Deputy Minister for Roads and Highways, Anthony Kabo, has been speaking he says the government is in talks with the contractor to be assigned the job. He spoke on JoyFM Super Morning Show.
Those of us who are sitting on the motorway today, can you give us a word? When can we expect to see the temporary works that you're talking about?
Oh, that is going to be immediate. I can assure you that by the close of October, a contract will surely be packaged. And a contractor. Yes, by the close
No, Cabo, we can't wait to October. We need to see.
No, you can wait to October because don't forget the laws also apply. We have to go through a process.
Okay, so the suggestion is being made that highways should do this. First of all, is that possible? Do we have the capacity, the manpower, and all of that to do that as long as it is funded?
Kojo, it all boils down to money. Capacity, we can get a contract. So, it all boils down to the finances.
Okay, so you're the Deputy Transport Minister. Do we have the money?
Underway. Of course. As for the motorway, I think the Finance Minister has given us some, leeway on that. That is critical, and he's found the money, and we are going to put.
How much? How much is going to be spent on these temporary works?
I won't be able to tell because we're not looking just only at the motorway. We are looking at other roads as well.
Are you going to procure? Are you going to give out a contract, or are the roads and highways going to be brought in to use whatever the money is to fix it?
I know there's a particular contractor who's been earmarked for this, which is Core Constructions, which is having the capacity to do these works, pretty fast. And that is what we are working to get him on. But of course, the ministry owes this company so much money. We have to pay him to mobilize and get back to site and be able to deliver on this work.
Now, one of the issues that came out in that story is the material that is used to fix the patches or the potholes on the motorway. And here on Twitter, on the same photograph I posted, the last issue says, how can they patch concrete with asphalt? And Vel Cannon comes into that. I bet that weird asphalt on concrete patching contract will cost, and into brackets, and promptly paid, enough for a new 8-lane pure concrete expressway. And John Kwashi says, Minister of Road, are you seeing this pothole? So these are just some of the comments or reactions we're getting as a result of the photograph we posted on Twitter earlier on in the day. But right now on the line we have Cecil Gabra. He's a transport consultant, and we're going to be speaking with him about how dangerous this motorway is as a result of these potholes that we're finding there, and the dangers or the threats that pedestrians and commuters are exposed to. Good evening to you, Mr. Gabra, and thank you for making time. All right, we appear to have lost Mr. Gabra there on the line, but let me just go through some more of the comments as we try and get him back on the line. Theresa Jane Apia says, it is very dangerous and I want to live to tell the story. And we have Mr. Akwe says, potholes pa near Ghana, what's happening? And Eric Likpe says, can your outfit raise some funds to fix it? Or as a social responsibility, multimedia should fix it. You help them to win the election. I don't know how a media house is going to help to fix the major potholes on the Accra-Tema motorway. I mean, that's you're asking for quite a bit. Now, the Douglas Senna says the Minister of Roads and Highways must sacrifice his monthly salary for the construction of these potholes because he drives in a V8. And then, in fact, Derek says, in fact, it is about time companies that produce cement should come on board and help, especially Gassam, etc. So these are a number of the comments that we're getting as from the photo we posted on Twitter. Now, let's get back onto the phone lines. Now, we have Cecil Gabra. Hopefully, we're going to have a stable line to him. Thank you for making time. Now, what are some of the dangers that the nature of this represents to pedestrians and commuters?
Thank you very much. Honestly speaking, it's so clear that the motorway has elapsed its usage. 1955, the motorway was constructed. It's a 19-kilometer road. And today, we are still struggling to repair that road. It's going to be a waste of time if it's repaired, because iron roads are coming out all over the 19-kilometer road. They are popping up. You can repair it today, tomorrow, it will pop up. Strictly, if you speak to the engineers, they will tell you that you can't mix cement. I mean, cement of the past and new cement, you cannot mix them together. So whatever repair works that they do will not last for a very long time. 52 years now, Kwame Nkrumah constructed that road. We are still using it. I mean, it's too much of a disgrace for me. If you look at maintenance of this road, it's been very, very poor. In the past, nothing has been done. That is why the metals are popping up. I feel it is now time for us to rethink again. I mean, if the motorway will have another adjoining 19-kilometer road, okay, it should be totally closed down. So we have a new motorway, and this must be excavated. Repair works will not, solve the problem. We will continue to waste money and waste money. And this is really dangerous. I mean, you are driving and then you see metals. I mean, you're talking about iron rods which were embedded in the concrete for 52 years. If you repair one half of it, definitely another portion will pop up. They started popping up, I mean, about 10 years ago. Repair work should be done, and another place will pop up. That is the reason why I'm telling you the fact that people are not driving, drivers are not using the outer lane again. They are driving in the inner lane.
All right,
and the inner lane is for faster vehicles. There is no purpose of driving on the motorway and then enjoying drive like we all used to do. You can't drive in the outer lane any longer because that is where the problems are. Of course, it is caused by the overloaded vehicles. And I quite remember in the early 2000s when I was on a committee, the World Bank, the IMF specifically said it, that, look, we need a lot of controls in this country. Right, the motorway was established because, I mean, it was a road linking Tema and Accra to carry goods and services. Is that the only road that we should rely on?
Mr. Gabra, in the meantime,
now, we are still relying on the motorway.
Mr. Gabra,
we need to think about construction of another road.
Mr. Gabra, now the Deputy Minister of Roads and Highways is saying that they are going to begin to work on the motorway repair the motorway by the end of October. Now you're saying that it's not going to work. But in the meantime, what will be the advice you'd give to motorists who are using that road? How do they go about it? And how do they navigate a poorly or pothole-infested motorway?
Thank you very much. The motorway is not a fast lane again. as people would think. I mean, in the past, people would say, let me go and test my vehicle on the motorway in terms of speed. Right, that connotation must be no longer be established by drivers. The motorway now is just a common highway. And if you look at it now, we have a lot of communities joining the motorway, and speed must be reduced drastically. I mean, there's a speed limit of 100 on the motorway, but for me, that is not even making a lot of sense. People drive more than 140 kilometers and so on, but I'm advising users that it is no longer a motorway, and therefore the speed limit must be reduced to about 8 kilometers per hour, so everybody must drive at that speed. Okay, there's no need for us to drive so fast because the outer lane is destroyed. We are all sharing the road, and therefore we are sharing it with trucks. We should stop insulting the truck drivers and ask them to move towards the outer lane because it doesn't work like it used to be. We need to share the road, so we should have a lot more of exercise. I mean, we should constrain a lot of exercise than rushing on that road as people would do, especially in the mornings and in the evenings. We should stop it. It is no longer necessary for us to speed. That's one fact. And then it should be controlled. We need a lot more of police patrols on the motorway to tackle breakdowns and tackle the drivers who also flout the road regulations by just misbehaving on the road. Others fully are talking on mobile phones and then they are driving on the motorway. That makes it much more dangerous than ever.
All right, thank you very much, transport consultant Cecil Gabra, sharing those insights with us. And his position is that as much as possible, avoid using the motorway as a high speed or as a highway or as a motorway where you're going to be speeding on. And we're just going, before we take a break to bring your business news, I just want to go to back to Twitter and read one of the comments that we have here. Now, Hughes, he says, I've taken note of this particular one, and he's making reference to the photo that is attached to this tweet. He says, I've taken note of this particular one. It is so visible when you're getting close to it. Now, if you have a pothole that becomes that visible, that people have taken note of it, it means the situation is that bad. We're taking a break. We're bringing you business news next. Please stay with us.
Hello again, thanks for joining me on Business. Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia has disclosed that government did not incur any cost for the implementation of the paperless system at the ports, which began last month. He said the entire automation system aimed at enhancing efficiency at the ports can be described as one of the best systems to upgrade at the ports. He was confident challenges in clearing processes at the ports will be dealt with by the close of the year. Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia was speaking at the opening of the 6th International Single Window Conference in Accra under the theme Facilitation Agreement and E-Commerce Development, the role of single window as catalysts.
The system automation at the port is among recommendations in the World Trade Organization's Trade Facilitation Agreement, of which Ghana is a signatory. It is part of measures to improve ease of doing business among member nations of the World Trade Organization and also to enhance efficiency at the ports. Speaking at the opening of the 6th International Single Window Conference here in Accra, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia said Ghana as a country has not incurred any cost as a result of the implementation of a paperless system.
Made sure that the processes that we are now implementing were largely paperless. And this is something that has been quite remarkable. And many people, even though it's a big project and it has come off very well thanks to, as I said, the collaborative effort of all Ghana Revenue Authority, the Customs, the Ministry of Finance, Trade, the service providers, including GCNet and West Blue and all of that. All of this happened, and I'm glad to say the Ministry of Finance was very happy because we were able to achieve the paperless ports without the government spending a single penny. And that was the remarkable part of this whole thing, that we were able to achieve this project without spending money on it, but we had collaboration and we were able to do it. And it's really from learning from best experiences and not reinventing the wheel.
He also used the opportunity to urge other African countries to adopt the initiative to automate their various ports to enhance the ease of doing business at the ports.
And the WTO estimates that the full implementation of its trade facilitation agreement could reduce trade costs by an average of 14% and boost global trade by up to $1 trillion per year, with the biggest gains in the poorest countries. Ghana is currently a signatory to this agreement, and I urge countries which have not yet signed on to the agreement to do so. I am confident that this conference will help you address some of the areas of concern for the countries which are yet to sign on.
Dr. Bawumia urged participants to use the event as a platform to address some challenges that may come with the implementation of the Single Window project. The three-day conference is aimed at bringing all stakeholders on a single platform to deliberate on solving challenges with the operations at the port under the theme Trade Facilitation Agreement and E-Commerce Development, the role of a single window as a catalyst.
Meanwhile, GCNet, the IT system provider for the National Single Window Project, has expressed its readiness to invest more on heavy equipment to ensure the services are improved at the ports. This is to allow importers and exporters have the full benefits of the program. Executive Chairman of GCNet, Dr. Norte Omabo, disclosed this to Joy Business at the sidelines of the ongoing International Single Window Conference and Exhibition.
Because the trade facilitation agreement is a real one. Countries such as Ghana have actually, signed the protocol, and it has certain requirements, that it imposes on countries like us, and the single window is one of them, and Ghana is fortunate to have made, great strides in the past, and the hope is to continue along this trajectory.
Permit me this last question. You did mention that the implementation of the paperless hasn't caused the exchequer anything, but I would like to find out, as stakeholders, GCNet, the main pioneer in this, have it cost you anything?
No. I mean, in terms of the systems, the systems have been in place. This is something we've said. The system, and this is why the whole question of leadership is important, because systems have been in place. But we had a vice president who championed this. There was a port efficiency conference in May. Various actors were brought in, not just from the continent, but also from outside of the continent. The big ports, like Singapore, Dubai, etc. And as a result of that, a number of objectives were set. So it was in this vein, and we welcomed it wholeheartedly. We were committed from day one. We knew it would work, but it required a champion. Because you're coordinating several agencies. You have the GPHA, you have the various shipping lines, you have, the freight forwarders, you have the importers, you have customs. Working in that environment, requires a community-wide effort. And this is what was successfully achieved under the direction of the Vice President.
Now, government is being asked to design special financial initiatives for farmers to boost the success of the Planting for Food and Jobs initiative. Managing Director for Serengeti Capital, Francis Kalichi, spoke with Joy Business at the just-ended Agri-Business Investment Forum organized by the GIPC and the USAID FinCap in Accra.
And if you do a small farm, there are things that you can do in maybe setting up a cooperative or various farms that can then create some scale and allow them to also afford certain things like right farm managers, technology, and so on.
Okay. Now, we've seen the Planting for Food and Jobs initiative and policy. Is it just enough, or what more do you think that needs to come in place to make this actually a success?
Well, look, all of this goes down to resources, right? So the Planting for Foods and Jobs is a great start, but ultimately you need to have resources behind this. So it's resources to help the farmer, not just planting for food and jobs. So the the farmer may need some capital to allow him to afford, tractor services. They may need some capital to allow them to take crop insurance, because they can't do crop insurance for small farms. So so there has to be, in addition to that, I feel there should be some financial instruments that are purely designed to help the smallholder farm. And if they have to be subsidized by government, so be it, right? We should determine what the cost is and say government has to recognize that smallholder farms cannot be. You can't compare them to large farms, right? They have certain issues that are peculiar to them that a large farm wouldn't have. So what resources can we give the smallholder farm? What financial incentives? How can we help private sector invest in smallholder farms also? I think these would certainly help in improving the sector.
That's all by way of business tonight. Many thanks for your company. For more business news, log on to myjoyonline.com/business.
Welcome back. Now, a number of television stations are likely to be taking off air in the coming weeks in an ongoing clampdown on media houses operating without the necessary permits and authorization. 131 radio stations have already been affected in that exercise by the National Communications Authority. Communications Minister Eslawusu Ekufo told journalists at Parliament House the NCA is currently putting together a report on encumbered TV stations and that an announcement will be made soon. She justified the closure of the radio stations as well.
Ongoing audit of TV stations as well. Thankfully, they are being migrated onto the digital platform. So any one of those stations which is currently enjoying test transmissions, which does not live up to its obligations under the rules and regulations setting it up, will not be migrated onto the platform and would by so doing cease operations. And I think that is the only way in which we can send a clear signal that we must make our laws work. It is critical to ensure that, as in every other civilized society, the rules and regulations that we all agree to, ceding part of our own rights and obligations for the general good, would be applied without fear or favor and malice or ill will, and dispassionately to everyone who may be caught. If every agency did perform their obligations that way, very soon this country would also be like the Western world, which we all so happily cite. When President Obama came here, he said we must build strong institutions and not strong men. How do you build strong institutions if the very rules and regulations setting up those institutions are flouted with impunity and people think they can act and get away with it?
Madam Osu Ekufo also criticized the minority in Parliament for attacking government over the NTA's sanctions.
For anyone to even suggest that there may be some motivation other than strict application of our laws, I think is most unfortunate. And I would chide the ranking member of the Committee of Communications for his comments that he made in that respect. I think that they were most unfortunate. He, of all people, together with all members of the committee, should have worked together with the NCA to ensure that the rules and regulations and the laws guiding their operations are fairly enforced. So while commiserating with affected stations, I would also urge them to also live up to their own responsibilities as good corporate citizens under the law, and rather commend the National Communications Authority for taking the bold step to insist on compliance with all the rules and regulations that guide the operations of all those who receive authorization to operate any kind of frequency in this country. We're open to discussions However, they must demonstrate good faith by paying a substantial portion of the fines that have already been levied. Then we can consider maybe entering into payment terms for the remainder. But we will insist that a substantial portion of the fines and sanctions that have already been imposed would be collected before we even discuss a payment term. But for those whose authorizations have been revoked, I suggest that they cease operating, because as from yesterday, as from today, the NCA has been empowered to also go out there and physically close down those affected stations if they continue flouting those regulations with those decisions with impunity. It is only fair that we make it possible for those who have been operating legally. And we lose sight of the fact that majority of the stations have been operating within the ambit of the law and meeting their obligations as and when they fall due.
Monday, we brought you a story about how some residents living around Mile 7 are being terrorized by armed robbers. Last week, gunmen on motorbikes attacked and robbed 3 different shops on Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. They escaped, or they made away with thousands of Ghana cedis after firing some warning shots. Now, on Tuesday, the police say they have started an operation to crack down on the perpetrators. JoyNews' Maxwell Agagba in this report tells another story of a Forex Bureau owner at Mile 7 who was also attacked in the shop 2 weeks ago around 3 p.m.
Sounds of some passers-by gathered in front of a Forex Bureau. On the floor, very close to a gutter, lies a half-naked man in blood-stained shirt. His head rested on the hard concrete used for the drainage system. Holding him tightly is a 28-year-old man, owner of the Forex Bureau that was robbed 2 weeks ago in Mile 7. Some of the passers-by want the thief dead. Robbers shot the owner of the Forex Bureau in the chest and in the arm after they attempted stealing from the shop around 3 p.m. But the owner did not succumb to the threat. With his gunshot wounds, he struggled with the robbers till some passers-by came to his rescue. He has been narrating his ordeal.
I was at the office, guy came in, was standing just here where the generator was, and he was putting his hand in his pocket as if he was removing money. So that time, I was focusing, my mind was on him. So what I just saw that moment was, he just pulled out a gun out. That moment, as I saw the guy just move 1, 2, 3 steps and face him, that was the time. What I hear from him was, move back. After the move, I just shot me on my chest. So that's where I started struggle with him. So as the struggle was going on, I was hearing the other one telling his colleague that he should shoot you. So that was the second time shot that I had on my arm. They shot you again? Yeah, they shot me again. Yeah, so as he saw that the way we were struggling, I was struggling with his colleague, he just rushed out and sparked up the motor. So the one I was struggling with was like, hit him with the motor, hit him with the motor.
He's not the only one at Mile 7 who is a victim of the daylight robberies in recent times. A mobile money merchant also suffered a similar attack last Wednesday. The robbers fired warning shots before stealing over 10,000 Ghana cedis from a shop around 3 p.m. Public Relations Officer of the Greater Accra Regional Police Command, ASP Efiatenge, has been visiting Mile 7 and its environs. She says police here will intensify their day and night patrols. They have already started impounding unregistered motorbikes, all in a bid to clamp down on the seeming surge in daylight robberies here in this community.
Since the police started recording a number of attacks on residents within Mile 7, the Mile 7 police decided to draw up a strategy to deal with the menace. And since one of the strategy had to do with impounding motor vehicles they see at odd hours within that stretch, and motorbikes that usually ply these areas, especially the quiet areas, and that is the time that we have observed that they strike when people are not around.
Now, safety experts are meanwhile urging the Ghana Police Service to create a special unit for regulation of motorbikes. The advice comes on the heels of rampant armed robbery cases, the latest being the Mile 7 incident. Now, even though the police have assured they will beef up security in those areas, President of the Ghana Institute of Safety and Environmental Expert Nana Ano Amehia recommend, among others, the strict enforcement of road traffic regulations by motorbike riders. He was speaking on the Pulse earlier.
The Rwanda government have set up a special division that deals with motorbikes. So every motorbike that you see on the street of Rwanda is registered.
It's registered.
And
okay.
How do you monitor this registration? You know, when they register the motorbike, it's linked to your national ID. So it's a good thing that the national ID is coming up, is being rolled out. So when you roll out the national ID, then you link every motorbike that is registered to one's national ID. So once you've been properly captured in the national data or the registration data, you cannot go and just use your motorbike for armed robbery, and you will be caught in no time at all.
Okay.
So the system, as we have it, because we don't have perfect registration for motorbikes, that's why people can go and carry out armed robberies.
So you're advocating that we should set up, or the Ghana Police Service should set up a special unit that deals particularly with motorbikes, and that will help?
Yes, it is, and many other things.
President Akufo-Addo has urged Ghanaians to put their shoulders to the wheel to enable his government succeed with the free SHS program that was introduced last month. He said if not for the implementation of the free SHS program, over 100,000 children would have dropped out of school. He made the statement at Laura as part of his two-day official tour of the Upper West region.
Our determination to revive our nation and put it on a sound basis for prosperity for the future. And the key to the future prosperity of our country is to empower our population, educate our young, so that they can face the challenges of today and of the future with confidence. That is why, even though we were left with an empty treasury, we have a Minister of Finance who is a magician with figures and has been able to find the money for us to begin the free senior high school project. On an average, every year for the last 5 years, 100,000 minimum students could not take up their places in senior high school because their parents could not afford the fees, which meant that in another 5 years, we would have had 1 million Ghanaian youth who would have had their education terminated and truncated at the level of junior high school in a world which demands full education. Dangerous for the future of our country. And I was determined that this should not continue. This year, the first year, like the pilot year of the new policy, 90,000 additional students have entered senior high school this year than they did last year. The 36,000 who could not find places this year could not find places not because their parents could not afford it, but because they could not make the qualification mark. And we have provided opportunity for them to reset the exam, and hopefully they can join the stream of further education.
Our correspondent Rafiq Salam joins me on the phone line with further detail on what the president has been up to. Hello, Rafiq. So where's the president now, and what has he been doing?
Israel, I'm straining my ears to listen to you, but if I've gotten your question right, today, the president went to Laura, Nandom, to move, and then he has just finished with Bolu, and he's heading back to work. So It's been the same message with us of dealing with the free HSS policy, the challenges that the road sector is facing, and also the issue of armed robbery, which is high on the agenda of the president.
All right. So the issue of armed robbery, what exactly did the president say about that?
The issue of armed robbery was first raised by the members of the leaders of the religious groups in the Upper West region, which was first raised by the Catholic Bishop of Wa, Richard Bawop. He spoke about the increasing cases of armed robbery in the Upper West region, some even happening in broad daylight. And so the president's response to it has to be that they have beefed up the security in the Upper West region. Remember, the Upper West region used to have 1,500 policemen at the end of last year, and then under some mysterious circumstances, some 583 of them were transferred out of the region with a replacement. So the president said that currently the past couple of months have seen them deploy 203 policemen to the Upper West region to build the security, and also a crack security CID team has also been sent to the Upper West region to also investigate on some of the cases so that they will be able to apprehend the culprits. And so that's what the president talked about, the issue of armed robbery in the Upper West region.
All right, thank you very much, Rafiq Salam, our Upper West Regional correspondent. Now, Minister for Health, Kweku Jumamenu, says his ministry will pay close attention to addressing health needs of persons with cerebral palsy. Some of these children, he says, serve society in better capacities than some non-challenged persons. He was speaking at the 2017 Child Inclusion Forum on cerebral palsy in Accra.
World Cerebral Palsy Day falls on October 6 every year to celebrate and affirm the lives of people living with the condition. Pumpkins Foundation, in collaboration with Cerebral Palsy Ghana ahead of this year's celebration, organized a forum to deliberate on ways of addressing the challenge. In his address, Minister of Health Kweku Jumamenu indicated the ministry is introducing physiotherapy units in all government facilities to cater for persons with cerebral palsy.
We will try to identify all disease burdens and look at how we can tackle them. Cerebral palsy is more on the patient, the child who has it, but the person who suffers most are the parents, and more especially the mother. And therefore, when we are doing social interventions and protection, we don't talk about only the child who has the disease, but the mother who sits home and makes sure that she's always there with the child. We are now introducing physiotherapy units in almost all government facilities, especially the tertiary institutions now have them. We are spreading down to regional and district hospitals. Sooner or later, you will see quite a number of them across the country. So we are also putting some emphasis on physiotherapy issues at the moment in our country.
Founder of Pumpkins Foundation, Beswa Dona Hammond, tasked government to put in place social intervention programs to make life bearable for children and families caring for those with cerebral palsy. Secretary at Cerebral Palsy Ghana, Rachel Quay, who is also a mother of a child with cerebral palsy, appealed to parents to desist from associating the disease with evil spirits and curses and rather seek early treatment. She says love and attention should be shown to the children instead of stigmatization.
The stigmatization is so great. As I stand here, you see me so beautiful, so nice. You'll be fine and you'll be laughing with me. But if I should sit in a church with a child with cerebral palsy, nobody would want to sit beside me just because of my child. But if I'm alone, you are okay. And it's not a contagious disease. The fact that a child has cerebral palsy, it shouldn't mean that the child, if you sit by a child like that, you might give birth to a child like that or anything. You know, some children go to the schools and then the other parents take their children out of the school because there's a cerebral palsy child in the school. So the proprietors or the headmaster will be forced to plead with you to take your child out of the school. So you can imagine. Most mothers are not working because they have to take care of those children. So if even your family can neglect you, your friends, what I have been through, you have no idea. So as we are here right now, if you see a child with cerebral palsy, don't neglect them. What they need is love, attention, and care. So if your child is playing with a child with cerebral palsy, don't go and call your child away from a child with cerebral palsy. They're just like you and I.
Now, the baobab tree is very common in the northern part of Ghana. Until now, the uses of this magnificent tree had largely remained untapped. Some women in the Upper East region have, however, now discovered ways to produce oil and other edible products from baobab. Incidentally, poverty is rife in many of the areas where the magic tree abounds. JoyNews' Upper East correspondent Albert in this report puts a spotlight on how baobab and shea nuts can positively transform such poverty-stricken communities through exploitation of these plants. The report is supported by the Media Foundation for West Africa.
This is the craft center at the Sokabisi community in Bolgatanga. Women engage in making all kinds of crafts. But I am here to find out how the women here, most of whom are widows, are able to produce oil, toffees, and flour for making ice cream from baobab fruits. It is September, the lean season of the baobab tree. Fruits are unripe at this time, and the women have taken a break from production. They, however, agree to do a little demonstration for our cameras. First, they break the shell of the baobab fruit and take out the content. They then pound it and sieve to separate the seeds from the powder.
We get oil from the seeds. The oil is very good for the skin and can treat skin diseases. We also use the flour for making ice cream and beverages. Baobab is very good for our health.
This work is often done with larger quantities of baobab. The flour and the seeds they obtain from here are taken to the Widows and Orphans Movement's Oil Extraction Center at Pusinamo, where the main production and packaging are done. Here at the Kandiga community, another group of widows are busy working in shea processing. I meet them steaming some crushed shea nuts in a pot. Once the work here is done, the product will be milled into paste and taken through other processes to come out shea butter. Rebecca Atonyange is one of the leaders of this group.
When I started this shea butter business, I did not know so much about it. We used to just manage to get by until the Widows and Orphans movement came in. They took us to Tamale to give us some training, and when we returned, they brought some trainers to teach us some other things at Pusunamo.
2 million. 2 million.
The Widows and Orphans Movement's Oil Extraction Center, located at Pusinamo in the Talinsi district, houses these machines used to complement the work of the widows and package the baobab and shea produce into finished products. Director of the Widows and Orphans Movement, Fatih Abigail Abdullahi, explained to Joy News how the equipment works.
This is our filtering machine, and usually the oil, this part of it would go into the oil, and then the oil would go through these cloths that would filter it, and then the clean oil comes off these pipes into the panel, and then through this screw we are able to have our clean oil, which goes into the 25-liter gallons, the yellow gallons we just saw. And this filter again is used for the shea oil filtration.
Also on display here are the finished products from the hard work of the widows.
Here is the end product of baobab oil. We saw the yellow gallons, which was the 25 liters, and these are 1 liter containers. We have 250 ml, 120 ml, and 60 ml. And these are how we now sell to the different customers that we have. Individual users, those who do cosmetic formulations, those who would buy to export, and the list goes on. We have the baobab powder, which is used for porridge and juices and smoothies. It has a lot of vitamin C content, good for the immune system.
Ghana has signed on to the Sustainable Development Goals. This is a new universal set of goals, targets and indicators that the United Nations member states will be expected to use to frame their agendas and political policies by 2030. Sustainable Development Goal 1 focuses on ending poverty in all forms by the year 2030. The Upper East region is one of the poorest regions in Ghana, with women being the worst affected. Baobab and shea trees are abundant in every part of this region with varied economic potentials.
The benefit is that for me as a widow, I am able to get money to cater for my children. Anytime they need something, I am able to get it for them. Otherwise, they will run away from school. If they need something for school and you are not able to get it for them, the girls would leave school and end up with the men. And the boys end up running to places like Kumasi to work and stop schooling as a result.
Currently, 465 widows work directly in these baobab and shea processing projects. This is even when the processing plant here is currently using just a quarter of its capacity. According to Fatih Abdullahi, at full capacity, a lot more women can be directly and indirectly employed under the project.
For now, we are able to use a quarter of our capacity as an industry, and this is mainly due to inadequate funding to be able to buy raw materials, to do more research in other areas and come up with more products for more women to be able to benefit. You know, baobab actually fruits during December to March, and this is the dry season where most of our women migrate to southern Ghana to seek non-existent jobs. So it is an industry that if there is more support in it, it can actually keep our women here in the north.
As Ghana pushes towards ending poverty and achieving Sustainable Development Goal 1, the story of these women offers government and other industry players a brilliant opportunity for creating massive employment if the right feasibility studies are conducted and the needed capital pushed into this emerging industry and an avenue for ending poverty. For Joy News, Albert Sorry, Upper East Region.